I apologize. But anyway, I want to thank my viewers. This is Comrade Funton Daniel speaking live here from the great state of Texas. And I want to thank all of you that are tuned in. I want to thank those here in Ground Zero. You know, you guys are doing an amazing job. But it is very, very important that we keep on emphasizing the importance of the people of Southern Cameroon and the quest for freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is a border word from the United States, maker of a United States. So, if you're here in the great state of, if you're here in the United States, I want to thank all of you for tuning in this evening, and it is very, very crucial. And I want to thank you for taking up your brief moment to join me live in this very, very important message that I'm going to be presenting. And I want to thank all of you, and thank you, Dinga. I haven't seen you for a while, but I just pray with your family, so you're wonderful, amazing for your work of art. There's nothing that I can more emphasize by the message that you deliver through your work of art. So God bless you. All of us are working in the same goal and the same objective. But thank you so much for tuning in this evening. I know many of you are preparing to celebrate Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is tomorrow. But I want to thank all of you that all of you to be safe. Safety is very crucial. The virus is still multiplying, but we can overcome the virus. But however, while we look for the solution for the virus, stay safe. This is Comrade Funton Daniel. I will be speaking live here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States. So, I want to first of all congratulate the president-elect, the newly United States elected president, Joe Biden and Harris, the vice president of these great nations. In a moment like this, they need a leadership. They need a leadership that has a sense of focus. They need a leadership that will lead people to the 21st century with the philosophy to be able to govern the people. The people of the world need a leadership. And this leadership can only come after the United States become the key player, the leader of the free world. So therefore, by United States is a symbol, is a symbolical for liberty, freedom in and around the world. And so therefore, United States must show those clear pathways that the rest of the world must follow. So therefore, we need that leadership. So in the coming administration of Joe Biden, so the people of Southern Cameroon are not exceptions. So therefore, my message to deliver today is for the incoming Biden administrations. Mr. Biden, we, the people of Southern Cameroon, I am one of the former citizens that was born in Southern Cameroon, a remote place, some west part of Africa. I didn't know that I would have this amazing opportunity to be here in these amazing nations. And so many other people has came earlier than I do. And so they came to these wonderful nations to build a magnificent nations that will stand and lead the world. Had it been the UK government knew that the United States today would be what it is today, I'm sure they would have learned the mistake that they did for the United States. They didn't expect that the United States should fight and free themselves. But in the moment like crisis, I think UK regret. But however, the wounds has healed, that the wounds and the relationship that existed between United States and the UK government has healed. But today, United States is the most amazing nation. When 13 states in this great nation stood for liberty and freedom, they were fighting. They didn't know that today, United States would be the leader of the free world. And so United States stands as a symbolical example for the world must follow. And so we know that the recent election that has come, but I have a trust in the United States that they, in the end, they will overcome. The people of Southern Cameroon, Mr. President, the people of Southern Cameroon, the people of Southern Cameroon, Mr. President, we know that you stood against the apartheid in South Africa. Mr. Biden, I watched your message, your powerful message you addressed to the apartheid in South Africa. And many Africans have watched that video. They watched that video with admiration when you spoke against the apartheid in South Africa. When you were speaking, you were a senator at the U.S. Senate, and that you spoke against the ongoing apartheid in South Africa. And that vivid images is still not far away from the people of Southern Cameroon. And so we are looking forward that your administration will still maintain the policy that you use against the apartheid in South Africa. And so therefore, we are working in closely and we are waiting closely. The people of Southern Cameroon are not exception, because when you stood against the apartheid in South Africa, today the apartheid is gone. Apartheid is history in South Africa. But because of your leadership, you may not have been the president of the United States, but you spoke vehemently against the apartheid regime in South Africa. And many of those videos is still amazing and still fresh. And many people are still watching the video as it appears as though you did a few days ago. But that leadership that you stood as against an apartheid regime in South Africa, today the people of South Africa is able to elect their own and choose who to govern them. And it is that freedom of liberty that the United States stood. And many people look upon the United States, that leadership. The people of Southern Cameroon are keenly waiting for a new leadership that you're going to ignite it. The people of Southern Cameroon, at least 40,000 people of Southern Cameroon has been killed, and unjustly. The people of Southern Cameroon has been killed unjustly. And these happened within the past 4 years under the current administrations. They deliberately haven't taken drastic decisions. They haven't taken drastic decisions. They tend to narrate the story. United States is a nation that is governed by law. The law is the key fundamental principles of these great nations. And so the people of Southern Cameroon will expect the United States to stand against those formulas. So we are asking the new Biden administrations that the people of Southern Cameroon has been unjustly. The current structure of the United Nations, has failed in its entirely. The current structure of the United Nations has failed entirely. If the document that is initiated, if United Nations respect the law that is created, then it ought to be applied unjustly. And we, the people of Southern Cameroon, found that that law is being selectively, the law in which was created by the United Nations is being unjustly selected and applied to a certain individual nations, and avoid others because of their relationship. France is manipulating the United Nations. We may not have voice. Africa may not have a permanent member at the Security Council. France may not have a permanent member at the Security Council. South Africa as a whole may not have a permanent member at the Security Council. But we believe that the leadership of the United States can change the course of narration. Although Africa is not being represented, maybe because they lack the ammunition and the guns to stand to be a key member of the United Nations. So we are asking the Biden administration that there is a bleeding going on in the people of Southern Cameroon, There is currently bleeding going on in southern Cameroon because the law has been unjustly applied to a certain individuals. The law has been unjustly applied. I said no. You have selected Ambassador Linda Thomas Gradfield. I know Mr. Biden has selected Ambassador Linda Thomas Gradfield. I think her unthinkable skill will bring a change at the United Nations that will be looked upon the United Nations as a key factor to the world. I'm sure she's not going to be ambassador to romancing with the system, but to stand with the objective of the United States policy. Ambassador Thomas Greenfield is the leader that is going to stand as a representative of Mr. Biden administration at the United Nations. The people of Africa have been watching the United Nations incoherently representing Africa. And that is why the people of Southern Cameroon are being unjustly killed. The people of Southern Cameroon are being unjustly killed by a foreign nation. I call La République du Cameroon a foreign nation. La République du Cameroon is a foreign nation because if the law was respected at the United Nations, then La République shouldn't be part of Southern Cameroon. If the United Nations law was justly respected, then La République shouldn't be part of the people of Southern Cameroon. If Article 1514 XV of the United Nations, Article 1514 XV of the United Nations were fully respected, that document should be part of the debate on the table to decide who is La République du Cameroon in the people of Southern Cameroon. 40 lives of Southern Cameroon has been unjustly killed by the neighboring country La République du Cameroon. And yet, we have the U.S. Secretary of State. We have U.S. Secretary of State undermine 40,000 people killed. We have the U.S. Secretary of State, the U.S. Undersecretary for African Affairs, Tibu Nagy. We have the U.S. Undersecretary for African Affairs ignore the 40,000 people of Southern Cameroon that has been unjustly killed by La République du Cameroon, and value the people of Southern Cameroon to continue to be slaves in the neighboring country La République du Cameroon. This is not the United States This is not the United States we look upon for leadership. This is not the United States we look upon for leadership. We look upon United States. United States is the respect of the law. I remember when I was stopped by a police that was driving. I was stopped by a police, and he asked me, "Do you know why I stopped you?" I said, "No, I didn't." He said, "You were speeding." He stopped me because I was speeding. Because the law required that a certain zone must have a certain speed limit. So by speeding above that, I am also violating the law. And so I was given a ticket for speeding above the distance. So if the police stopped me because I was speeding, and that is what the law says, then the law is equitably applied to every individual. So if the United States is the respect of the law, then the United Nations must apply its law irrespective of the nation's policy. The people of Southern Cameroon are being unjustly treated by the United Nations that has systematically failed in its policy. Article 1608 of the United Nations Charter specify Article 1608, Article 1514, those are the documents that specify there shouldn't be 40,000 people and 300,000 homes burnt in Southern Cameroon. There shouldn't be all those number of homes burnt in Southern Cameroon. If the world would have stood up and said, no, let's look at the terms of the relationship Because looking at the terms of the relationship between La Republique du Cameroon and the people of Southern Cameroon can make a significant difference. U.S. Under Secretary of State for African Affairs that he will support the territorial integrity of Cameroon. If United States is fully blind by a secretary stating that the territorial integrity of Cameroon, when did Cameroon become a territorial integrity? We all went to the same school that the Secretary of State went to. We all have the same level of education. We all have the same interpretation of what the law says. We all have the same knowledge. If we all have the same knowledge, and if we don't all went to the same education, and if we all have the same experience, and if we all should have, but unfortunately, all of us cannot become Secretary of State. Each one has a specific duty. And so since each one has a specific duty, we want the Secretary of State to interpret exactly what the law says. If United Kingdom have a territorial integrity, if United Kingdom have a territorial integrity, then United States respect the territorial integrity of the UK. If UK can abandon the European Union because they have their own territorial integrity, then the people of Southern Cameroon should have the same equitability to be able to abandon the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroon. If law were equitably applied, it should be applied universally. We shouldn't respect this, be selectively. When UK voted to join the European Union, it was unanimously accepted that UK will be part of the European Union. But however, UK did not relinquish its dollar money. UK did not relinquish its dollar money, or the pound, the British pound. They maintained the British pound in respect that they voted to join the European Union. But if along the line, the UK decided that it wasn't feasible for the UK to be part of the European Union, and they have a choice to decide, and they've chosen to decide not to be part of the European Union. That is their privilege. That is their right to choose and to decide. But the people of Southern Cameroon cannot make a choice. They have no choice, but they have to rely on a false assumption. The fact that Africa is not represented at the United Nations in a key position, that doesn't mean that Africa should be manipulated. The people of Southern Cameroon should have been respected. When the United Nations decided a decolonization, Southern Cameroon was not part of the administrative authority of La Republique du Cameroon. Southern Cameroon was part of the administrative authority of the British government. And the European and the United Nations Charter said decolonization. Decolonization should be applied equitably, without bias, without discrimination, and must be justly applied. Why can't the people of Southern Cameroon? Why can't the people of Southern Cameroon govern themselves? Why can't the people of Southern Cameroon govern themselves? If UK, well, one will ask me, UK has its ammunition to protect its territorial integrity against the European Union. Yes, UK has a military capability. Southern Cameroon doesn't have that military capability. So we are on the stage of doing that, just that. If the world wants to maintain peace, they must respect the equality of everyone, irrespective of whatever their social status. If we are fighting for equality, if we are fighting for a social status, then we should be equitably applied to everyone. We shouldn't be selective. So I am here to remind U.S. newly appointed potential ambassador to the United Nations Miss Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield. I hope when you get to the United Nations, you won't be a colorblind and ignore the fundamental principles. 40,000 people of Southern Cameroon has been killed unjustly by the most brutal regime. When the people came to the table with neighboring country like Republic of Cameroon, they came with equal status. They did not come as an underclass. They did not come and above the class. They came of equal status with the neighboring country like Republic of Cameroon. Therefore, the people of Southern Cameroon have the right to question the people, the neighboring country like Republic of Cameroon. We have our citizens. We have our citizens that are languishing in prison in La Republic of Cameroon. We have our citizens that are languishing in La Republic of Cameroon. The U.S. Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, the U.S. Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, that he cannot speak with the diaspora. That was a very unfortunate statement to listen from the U.S. Secretary of State, that he cannot speak with the diaspora, the Southern Cameroon diaspora living in the United States. That was an understatement for such a high caliber person of the United States, that he cannot speak with the diaspora. Because you, as a Secretary of State, undermine the rule of law. You, as a Secretary of State, undermine the rule of law. If you respect the rule of law, then everything must be applied equitably. 40,000 citizens of Southern Cameroon, we are living here in the United States. 40,000 of our people have been killed by a terrorist government of La Republic of Cameroon. You are head of the State Department. What have you done? You have never spoken. Their first word was a letter you written on the 6th of November that you cannot speak to the diaspora. 4 years, a Secretary of State has never mentioned, talk about the crisis that is going on in Southern Cameroon. You totally deliberately ignore it. We are citizens, we came there. We are physically here in the United States. You expect us to see our relative being killed, and we just fold our arms because you see territorial integrity of La Republic of Cameroon. Because the sons and daughters of the territory are unvalidated. Dear Mr. Secretary, it is very deplorable. As a former CIA director, I'm sure you understand what it is that when people are fighting for freedom, United States is a clear example. United States, some 200 years ago, I am sure you may have forgotten the story or the history of these great nations. United States, some 200 years ago, were advocating for no taxation without a representation. If that philosophy holds true, then the people of Southern Cameroon is not exceptionally different. The people of Southern Cameroon, all the mineral deposits in Southern Cameroon are converted to build the property of La Republic of Cameroon and France. The revenue generated from Southern Cameroon are converted to build France. And that is why France is blocking every conversation that is taking place at the United Nations. They couldn't even bring the crisis. Imagine that it was a European nations, a city in European Union. Of course, emergency session would have been called immediately. Is that not an egoistic and biased way of governing? You think Africans are just stupid, so fool, and they can't even talk, they can't speak up. We were born in Southern Cameroon. We feel the pain and the suffering when our people that are living in their own territory are being ignored because they want the territorial integrity of the neighboring country, La Republic of Cameroon. Dear Mr. Secretary, Mr. Pompeo, is that the government that you talk about liberty and freedom? That is not the government of liberty and freedom. You haven't even opened your mouth and speak up. You said you can't speak to the diaspora. You can't speak to the diaspora. The most brutal regime, Biya Regime, he's been in power for 40 years, for 38 years or so. if there was a dictatorship here in the United States, probably Donald Trump administration would not have occurred here. It's because of a government of justice, a government where people voice and elect their leadership. That is the government that the United States stood for. And you don't see it. You imagine that you stood up and support someone that has been in power for 38 years, and you speak of a territorial integrity when 40,000 citizens of Southern Cameroon have been unjustly killed. You don't see the people of Southern Cameroon. You see the territorial integrity. Is that your administration's policy of foreign affairs? That is a disaster, Mr. Secretary. That is absolutely a disaster. We have pain. We have feelings as well. We do have feelings, and we do feel pain, Mr. Secretary Pompeo. We do have feelings. The people of Southern Cameroon is the first in West Africa to have an elected official, an elected government, and the transfer of power from one elected government to the next elected government. The people of Southern Cameroon has demonstrated those skills. La Republic has not. La Republic du Cameroon hasn't. Hasn't developed a single. You have one brutal regime that was in power for 25 years under Amadou Ahidjo. And we have the current one that has been in power for 38 years. He's mentally deranged. Paul Biya is mentally deranged. He cannot recognize his house. He cannot recognize the wife's name. He's just wandering like an early person. Is that the government that you and your administration endorse in Africa? That is absolutely disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting. Is that the government that your administration endorse under your leadership, under the State Department? I am sure none of you will endorse that. Someone that is mentally deranged. He doesn't remember the wife's name, Paul Biya. He doesn't remember his wife's name. He doesn't remember the room he came out of. He doesn't remember his own present office that he has been there for 38 years. That is the Paul Biya regime. That you are an administration has stood and support of them. Is that the government you support? Your ambassador is speaking against the current administration in La Republic. You are an ambassador. You haven't appointed an ambassador to lead because you don't even have someone you trust. Fellow Mr. Pompeo, this is an honest conversation. This is an honest conversation that I am asking you as the head of the State Department. The territorial integrity of Cameroon. The territorial integrity of Cameroon is because of the French, that is France, that is controlling the part of Africa, the mineral deposit in southern Cameroon, that the people cannot even have access to the mineral. The people are living on the meagly crumbs of bread, while the interest of France is more crucial. And that is the purpose why they support La Republic, to control the people of Southern Cameroon. French president, and I quote, that they cannot see an Anglophone speaking to be a president of Cameroon. If an Anglophone cannot be president of Cameroon, then the people of Southern Cameroon cannot be part of that bullshit country. If a French president, the president of a foreign nation, the president of a foreign nation, a French president, going through the media categorically stated that a president of Southern Cameroon origin cannot be a president of La Republique of the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroon. But they see the people of Southern Cameroon to be a loyalty to the neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroon. The people of South Africa are asking the United Nations, Article 1514 and Article 1608 XV of the United Nations Charter, to be fully implemented and respected. To be fully implemented and respected, so that the people of South Africa can have their voice, and that the citizens can have their voice. We are citizens of this great nation. We cannot travel to visit our family. We cannot. We cannot travel and visit our family. You are the Secretary of State, and you, under the Secretary of State, you ignore this value. We can't travel. But you see us as a stupid, as an idiot, Mr. Secretary Pompeo. You think we are just stupid and idiots? Neighboring countries like Republic to Cameroon control our own life, our own people, our sons and daughters. Because you ignore the fundamental question. If Britain, I'm asking this question, if Britain can join the European Union in less than few years, they voted to get out of the European Union. The people of Southern Cameroon has been with La Republique since 1961. Since 1961, they have the right to determine whether they should be in that nightmare, Mr. Secretary. The people have the right, the privilege to choose their destiny. The people of South Africa have the right and privilege to choose their destiny. And it is the wishes of this, you as a secretary, to see those wishes become a truth. That is what, because United States, no taxation without a representation at the UK government. And that is what they stood for, and they fought against. 13 states stood against the UK government 200 years ago. The framer of these nations, no taxation without a representation. The British government joined the European Union, and all of a sudden, they back up because they don't want the union. So you see Africa, the only place where they cannot back up in any union. There must be falls, because France is generating mineral deposits for their own French citizens, while the people of Southern Cameroon are living on crumbs of bread. Is that what you're speaking about, Mr. Secretary? You cannot meet the diaspora. For the past 4 years, you can't meet the diaspora, Mr. Secretary. People of Southern Cameroon has feelings. People of the Southern Cameroon has pain. Imagine that you from your own state prevent you from returning to your own state. What could you imagine that, Mr. Secretary, that if you leave and your state say they no longer see you in your state, then imagine we, the people of citizens of Southern Cameroon, that a foreign nation is testifying that he doesn't want the citizens of Southern Cameroon to be in their country. By a foreign nation, La Republique du Cameroon. By a foreign nation, La Republique du Cameroon. And you say you can't meet with the people of Southern Cameroon. Of course, it's now that during the change of administration that you are speaking up. For the past 4 years, have you been speaking up? You are undersecretary. He promised a glorious through French Venkat that when he travel and meet Paul Biya, he's going to make a significant difference. You are deputy secretary. He says when in French Venkat he spoke that when he travel and meet Paul Biya, there will be a significant difference. But when he came back, I haven't heard of any significant difference, Mr. Secretary of State. I haven't. I haven't seen any significant difference. I haven't. Dear Mr. Secretary, I haven't seen any significant difference from your own secretary that promised a glorious visit to meet for Biya Regime. Even your own ambassador spoke against the regime. You replaced him and said he went for a retirement. And you haven't replaced him because there is no one agree on your own policy that you can replace in La Republic. The Southern Cameroon question is a fundamental question. To resolve the crisis, we need to put Article 1514, Article 1608 XV on the table, be part of the discussion with the neighboring country, La Republic du Cameroon. To resolve the crisis in Southern Cameroon, Article 1514 XV, Article 1608 should be part of the deciding document on the central discussion. Mr. Secretary, remember that you went to school? Many of us too may have been in that same school as well. So if you are a secretary selected to lead this amazing nation, remember that either other candidates could have also been selected as well. I am pleading with the incoming Biden administration. I am pleading with the same Biden administration that the people of Southern Cameroon want to have a piece of their land. They want to have a piece of their land respected. They want to have a voice to decide what goes in and out of their territory without a foreign influence or foreign interference by a neighboring country like Republic du Cameroon. What does La Republic think we are? We are fools. Of course, La Republic in November, La Republic is organizing what is so-called the chief election in December. They're organizing the so-called, whatever the election. I think it's November 6th, if someone may correct me if I'm wrong. They organize election on what terms of election? When who is La Republic in the first place? Because once you understand who is La Republic, then you can understand why they are organizing election. La Republic is nothing to be found in Southern Cameroon. If the Southern Cameroon question asking who is La Republic du Cameroon, there is no fundamental principles that define La Republic in Southern Cameroon. Because once you understand, they have what they so-called divide and rule system. La Republic has what is so-called divide and rule system. A divide and rule system, they appoint their citizens to conquer the people of Southern Cameroon. That gives them an opportunity to distort the people of Southern Cameroon minerals, deposits, and every aspect of the people's daily life. In order to achieve that, just like Metternich in the ancient history, Metternich knew that preventing foreign interference in Austria will give them long time for them to control that part of the world. But it was a short life. The more you control, the more the people want to know why you have to control. But when you allow them to decide, then they can sit quiet. But the people of Southern Cameroon have had enough of La Republic du Cameroon. The people want to be governed themselves. They want a government that represents the aspiration of the people of Southern Cameroon. La Republic is organizing election. You organize election on what terms of election are you organized? As what field? The people of Southern Cameroon is capable to organize election. So just get out of Southern Cameroon and let the people decide what they want for themselves. We don't need La Republic to dictate on us. First, we have an independent election. We have changed leadership. First, Endele was elected Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon. Second, John Foncha was elected Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon. Third, Ngum Jua was elected Prime Minister of Southern Cameroon. Can La Republic proudly announce one single individual they have elected and transfer power? I am sure that it will be brought clear. Has La Republic in the history of immemorial has La Republic organized election and transfer power? And Mr. Secretary, yet you see them as the people that can control the people of Southern Cameroon, as people of Southern Cameroon cannot govern themselves. There is one critical moment when a patient comes to the hospital. The word is called focus assessment. When a patient comes to the hospital, there is what they call focus assessment. Focus assessment is related to the problem that brought the patient to the hospital in the first place. Let's say, for example, a patient comes to the hospital with chest pain. You might not take the protocol for COVID-19 treatment and put as a protocol for the treatment of chest pain, Mr. Secretary of State. So every treatment has a protocol. So if healthcare has a protocol of dynamically treating a patient, that protocol should also be applied for the rest of the world. United Nations should have those protocols in dealing with problems. They shouldn't superimpose. Because imagine patient come in with his chest pain and you start treatment of COVID-19 protocol. Of course, the patient will be dead before you realize it. And that is what they call focus assessment. Focus assessment identifies the key problem. And if we transfer this focus assessment into Southern Cameroon, then we will find out Article 1514, Article 1608. That is exactly what has brought us to this crisis of Southern Cameroon. People are beating around the forest, but they can't talk about the key problem that brought the crisis. Because if we look at the key problem of the crisis, Article 1514, 1608 are the key problem in which should have been the key focus assessment between Southern Cameroon and the neighboring country, La Republic of Cameroon. We cannot ignore it. So therefore I am asking the Biden administration that there is a fundamental key issue. While we have the COVID-19 that is rocking the United States, the world also needs the United States for leadership. And I think the past administration has failed entirely when the U.S. Secretary of State says he cannot meet the diaspora. Then it is very unfortunate that the United States, the supernation on the planet, its secretary, top government leaders, say they cannot meet the diaspora because they don't want to discuss the focus assessment. They don't want to discuss about the key issues, the focus assessment. Article 1514 should be the focus assessment, decolonizations. And if we deal with this, then we can have the better treatment, either it's for COVID-19 or heart attack. Thank you. This is Comrade Funton Daniel speaking here from the great state of Texas, here in the United States. Have a good rest of your Thanksgiving.